Well, hello there.
Hello.
Friends, lovers, thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy, Nasir, and it is post-debate. Okay, politics. Amy, Robert, politics, right? But
Some words.
the debate, the United States presidential debate for the 47th, well, the 47th, it won't be the 47th. We don't get a 47th. Damn it. Maybe it will. Post-debate, you all know, there was a big debate, the first debate between the presidential contenders in the United States. Yes, the big round, the big tough fighters, Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Didn't I get that last year?
What was it? Weekend at Bernie's versus...
Versus what? The Apprentice. You're fired.
Tell me in the chat. There was a meme going out there. It was sort of like a guy holding a knife or something like that, like devious qualities or, I don't know, some sort of thing. It was like a movie. I don't know. Do you vote for the dead guy over Donald Trump? It's kind of tempting.
I can't even. But even though I can't even, I will. Folks, you deserve the best commentary. We've heard a lot of it. Yara Brooke had great things to say about the debate. On Barry Weiss's pre-press, as well as her channel, honestly, several discussions post-debate. There was a good discussion with Amy Peikoff, talking to Matt Kibbe and Mark Pellegrino, our own, I always say our own, because he's one of our guys, Mark Pellegrino, on the post-debate. But of all the things that were said, they left out the most important part, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us in the chat. I see Jim on the Facebook side as well as on YouTube. Always awesome on both. Hello, Robin, Christopher, Amy. Oh, wait, that's you. Christopher Smith, of course, tells us to cue the bass, which we always do. I always say I'm going to update that intro music one of these days, and one of these days I will, but today is not that day. Hello, Paul. It is good to see you in the chat. Last night was a good time, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was
that
good.
was great.
It was good.
We all went to the theater. The smallest theater you can imagine. Great play. Well, great performance of a good play. Let me put it that way. Race, hello there. Robin is, I already said Robin. And Equal to Realities in the chat. Core group is on hand. Thank you for that. Today, Sunday, June 30th. Let me get a couple things out of the way real quick. Because they will. Because what kind of an orator is that? We need better orators. We need men who still have their wits about them. Unlike, well, today is Sunday, June 3rd. June 3rd. See, he's already... I could have topped Joe Biden's performance. Maybe not. Today, Sunday, June 30th, 2024, is the 182nd day. 182. Think about that. 182 days have passed in 2024. Man, have we been having a good time. But I hope you have traded those days for experiences that were absolutely worth it. And if not, if you have any regrets, if you've still got more to do, 184 days are left. 178 days until Christmas. 83 until autumn. Until the fall in the Northern Hemisphere. In the Southern Hemisphere, I think they call that spring. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they call it autumn and fall, but they have autumn, fall equals spring weather. No, I think they actually invert the names of the seasons.
In Australia, I'm sure they do.
Down under. Unless you're looking at that. I love the upside down map that puts Australia at the top.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Because it isn't at all kind of arbitrary.
Well, you know, the mitten's below the... the bunny is below the mitten.
The bunny is below the mitten.
And the mitten is pointing downward.
Is this America and Canada that you're talking about?
Michigan.
Yeah. So, well, some folks don't know. Ontario, Canada. Well, Windsor, Ontario, Canada is actually south of Detroit, Michigan.
That's right. So
Craziest thing.
So when Journeys sing about South Detroit, they're talking about Windsor.
But it isn't South Detroit. There is no South Detroit. Well, you know, it could just mean the south part of Detroit. Southwest Detroit, pretty rough. Good idea for that song. One of the things I wanted to mention today, it's been news for a while, so this is not new news, but Amy and I are jealous. We are jealous that we have not been out to Michigan Central Station yet.
Oh, I know.
If some of you know Detroit as the place where they have that 15-story train station that has been in ruins for decades. Ford just got finished rebuilding it. The Ford Motor Company, and of course your tax dollars at work too, but Ford made it beautiful. We got to get down there and tour it.
Yeah, we do.
We've got friends who have been there, and we haven't.
We've seen a lot of photos, and I've seen some video, and I don't know how far you can go into it, or if it's just the lobby that you can see, but it would be lovely to be able to see it.
Right.
So we need to look up their hours and figure out a time to go, as one does.
So what's the difference between jealousy and envy? Well, they can be used interchangeably, but philosophically, when we talk about it, jealousy is, man, I'm jealous of my friends who have been there, and envy would be, damn it, tear the place down because I didn't get to go.
Yeah.
There's your philosophical definitions right there. 123 days until Halloween.
Yes. Oh, 1, 2, 3.
And on this date, yeah. Well, I had to mention Halloween because Thursday night was a horror show. And again, we'll get right back to that Halloween episode of Presidential Debates.
Yeah.
But on this date, real quick, because it's June 30th. 1974, Mikhail Baryshnikov. Mikhail Baryshnikov, Defects from the USSR.
Yeah, that's great.
What do you mean he defects? He's a dancer. Oh, he's one of Russia's greatest dancers. Well, except it wasn't Russia. It was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR. And to defect, you had to, you have to get to the United States somehow. He was a dancer, so he was touring for the prestige of the USSR, great ballet dancer. And then you've got to escape from your minders, including the KGB agents who are watching over you to make sure everything's okay. Great dancer. Video clips are on the YouTubes. Information on this day in history are in the show notes, YouTube description, Facebook description. What it tells me is, A, men can be great dancers. I'm not a great dancer, at least not yet, and I tend to think of dancing as something women do. And then I watch Fred Astaire or Mikhail Baryshnikov, and I think, oh, yeah, wrong again. No, guys, if you're not a dancer, get out there and dance.
Yes.
You can do the thing. But why it matters to me is because Baryshnikov, by taking this chance, defecting against his own government, he was a hero. He was a hero for being the level of dancer that he was. Why is it being a hero to go from one country to another? In the category of things have been worse, it's no longer as hard to get out of Russia as it was to get out of Soviet Russia. People don't remember. People don't understand what it meant to try to escape East Germany. They don't remember what it was like to try to escape Soviet Russia. There are countries even now that are hard to get out of, but most of the world has it so much better than they ever did in the past. Nowadays, what's stopping us? The Gestapo, the East German police, the KGB. No, it's our friggin' immigration laws. Mm-hmm. Complicated subject that came up during Thursday night's debate, but hats off to the great Mikhail Baryshnikov defecting from the USSR on this date. I don't have much else for on this date, but it is Social Media Day. Happy World Social Media Day. You know, first there was the telephone, then the fax machine, then the internet, and then social media, a development that has given us enormous power and has been used poorly in so many ways that some people are very critical or suspicious of social media. I don't take it for granted. Of course, I use it very wisely and never waste time on it. And it lets me connect, well, among other things, to all of you good people.
You know, I have something to say about that. So when I was
Please.
When I was a little girl, my mother, you know, and this for anybody growing up in the 80s, you may recognize this. A lot of mothers at the time would say, clean your plate, eat everything on your plate that I give you, because there are poor people dying in Ethiopia, and you should feel guilty if you don't eat all of your vegetables, and so on and so forth. And and that just got me thinking more and more. You know, at some point when I was a young girl, I started realizing that there are other places in the world. And my first impression of that was any place other than the United States of America was, riddled with strife and war and
it just wasn't safe.
Murder, and it was just not safe.
Yeah,
and
you told me about your mother taking you to Canada once.
Yeah.
And yet, folks, you got to understand, if you're in Southeast Michigan, going to Canada is just driving over a bridge.
Yeah, very easy. Not far away.
Funny money there, but everything else is pretty normal.
I must have been like about 7 years old, or 8 maybe. Anyway, I asked my mom, I said, which state are we in? Are we still in Michigan? And she's like, no. Well, which state are we in? She's like, well, we're not in a state. We're actually in a different country. Canada is a different country. And I'm like...
So as a little girl, you thought that was really exciting and fun, right?
No, I cried.
Oh.
Like, take me back to America, the United States of America. It's not safe here. Yeah, so that was my impression at the time. And I just grew, more and more, knowledgeable about what was going on in the world. And I would always have this very strange feeling of, I will never know people from other countries. I will never understand what's going on with them or how they're doing. I'll never make friends. At the time, there were such things as pen pals, but that was very limited back then.
Pen pals.
Yeah, pen
pals. Oh my
pals.
gosh, can you imagine?
But, with the internet, with social media, it's so easy now to understand people from other countries. People don't even know, people whose their second language is English. Their first language is completely something else. And some people I can't even communicate with, or Google Translate will help with that. It's amazing. So many people that I've met from different countries through, Objectives conferences and so on. And it's been wonderful.
There's so many relationships that would not exist but for the internet and for social media. Yeah. Absolutely. And so many myths, we now have Snopes and other places to fact check. So Apollo Zeus has now joined us in the chat and says toilet flushing goes in the wrong direction, too, clockwise or anti-clockwise. And of course, Ian jumps in and says that's a myth. Because of the internet, we now know that the Coriolis effect is not strong enough to cause that to happen. It usually has more to do with the jets or the shape of the bowl of your sink or your toilet. But we probably also got the wrong idea of it from the internet too. So trade-offs, pros and cons. On balance and used properly, the social media, the internet in general and social media in particular, is a massive boon. It's interesting that if you got an internet connection, it's free. Oh, but they're paying for your eyes. They're showing you ads. Yes, they are. And I'll take it. I love it. We've had whole discussions about it. Curate your social media spaces, manage them, make them what you want them to be. People say, oh, Facebook sucks, X sucks, Threads, MeWe sucks. None of them suck. They all are what you make of them.
Right.
I think the only limitation is who's there, and that's why I don't really use MeWe anymore. Most of the folks who went there came back and all that. Love it. Love, love, love it. One more to celebrate on this date. It is Michael Phelps' birthday, his 39th birthday. Michael Phelps has won a record 23 Olympic gold medals.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Wow. Happy
39th birthday, Michael Phelps, the amazing swimmer, amazing athlete, amazing guy. I almost feel bad that he was parodied in that song by Ron Toole and the Capitalists, Throbbing Prawn. But I don't feel that bad because it's one of our more viewed videos. And there is a link to it in the show notes if you're curious what Amy and I were doing maybe 12 years ago in a music studio recording that album. So there you go. Happy birthday, Michael Phelps. Sorry about the video, but not really. And that's it for On This Date. Under Shameless Self-Promotion and What Are We Listening To This Week? What have we got? Amy, did you want to share what you did last Sunday?
Oh, well, I know you put a link in the show notes on YouTube.
Yes, I did.
And, it was just another flamenco performance. It was just the, so the place that we actually practice at, this dance studio was having a recital for all of the people who practice at the studio. And, it's all right. It's okay. We did two dances. We did two different tangos, a short one and a longer one. This didn't have any castanets or fans or shawls or anything like that. It was just us in our shoes. The flooring was a little hard because it was rubberized, so you really couldn't get that nice, crisp, stomping sound that everyone enjoys in flamenco. But we did our best, and we stomped extra hard to just kind of make that come out. But yeah, we did a fairly good job.
Yes, you did a good job. And for folks who have seen your previous flamenco videos, they've had bigger performances, not just in their dance studio showroom, but on stage at the International Dance Festival in Holland, and in schools before school children, showing them flamenco dance, and the one at the West Bloomfield Library. Yeah, but they've got a great performance room there. That was a great performance. What made this one good? And there have been a few like this, but there was live music. You did have your guitar player there.
Yeah, there was a guy
and it's always nice Steve. When you have that.
Yeah.
We often use recorded music, and I'm the sound guy for that. I got to work on my guitar chops so I could fill in as guitar player too.
Yes, you do.
I can rock out, but I can't do flamenco.
Yeah, I mean, if you practice, you could.
I could. Incidentally, I'm looking at the chat, and we've got folks in the chat, including, who was the first one to say it? Equal to Reality says, Snopes is not a fact checker. It's a leftist political thing. You're absolutely right, except it's also a fact checker. You can use it for that. The trick is kind of like reading the New York Times. You have to read through the bias and be a little bit skeptical of some of the facts that they claim, and it remains a valuable resource. And the best thing about it is kind of like Wikipedia, is they do list their sources. And if you're willing to click those sources and say, okay, Snopes, was this really true? You can find out. So I still find it valuable. But you are right. As a man of reason, everything goes in your head needs to be fact-checked. So more power to you for that. The flamenco performance is listed, but before that in the show notes, you'll see an item. It says, Play for Chris 10. Worldwide tribute to Chris Squire.
Yes.
Some of you will already know what that was. My favorite rock band in the world here, the coffee mug we're using tonight, the Yes mug. My favorite rock band in the world is the band Yes. And for most of their history, their bass player, the original bass player from the very start, Chris Squire, one of the great rock music bass players, one of the most inventive rock music bass players, and certainly the best tone, the best sound. Man, that guy could grind. He passed away in 2015. And shortly after, in fact, before he passed away, but we knew that he had leukemia, it turned out. He was not doing well, but there's a great bass player out there, an outstanding bass player, a guy named Miguel Falcoa. If you look for him on YouTube, you'll find him as Miguel Bass.
Yeah, he's a really great guy. Where was he? Is he in Brazil? Is he in...
I thought he's in Portugal.
Portugal.
I think he's in Portugal. He's in Europe.
Great.
And Miguel is a great bass player. He's also a double bass player, multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah.
But one of the fun things that he does, probably more of the videos he's posted than anything else, he'll do tributes to Chris Squire by playing covers. You'll see musicians will play their instrument over the record album. And he does a great job with this. And it's fun because he doesn't turn off Chris Squire's bass altogether, but his is over the top and louder. And you get to really hear what's there. There are things he does where I thought, that's not what Chris Squire does. And then I listened to the album and I'm like, no, as usual, Miguel got it right. I just didn't hear everything that was going on there. Anyway, Miguel, being a big Chris Squire fan and doing all of these videos of his music, when Chris Squire got sick, did a tribute to Chris Squire. He called it Play for Chris. And he invited bass players around the world to play a little bit of a Yes song, kind of like the way he does, or just by themselves, or just to give a spoken tribute, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. And he compiled them all together as a tribute to Chris Squire that could be played for Chris while he was in hospital or wherever he was to give him encouragement. And sadly, Chris Squire passed away anyway. I don't even know if he heard that first video. But since then, Miguel's done one every year.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I'll join the fray and
I never did
in.
Until last year. So it was the 9th annual one that he did before I finally joined in and added a little clip. And this year I did it again, which is why I linked to self-promotion and what we're listening to this week. If you're a Yes fan, or just a rock music fan, or fan of great bass players, or if you're just curious to see what that's about, the link is in the show notes. But that's not all. Shameless self-promotion and what we're doing this week. The Dinosaurs are here. Now, we mentioned this before. We've shared before on the Facebooks, on the YouTubes, on the social media. Incidentally, folks, for those of you who are skeptical of X or skeptical of Facebook, but you are willing to post on YouTube videos, think about that for a second. YouTube is social media as much as anything. But anyway,
Yes.
Dinosaurs Are Here refers to the Dinosaurs in Motion exhibit at the Henry Ford Greenfield Village, the Henry Ford Museum.
That's a wonderful exhibit.
And that's where you work. In fact, that's where you've been you've been the PM, the project manager for all of the communications on that.
Yeah, I bet those marketing people behind that exhibit are really, really cool people.
If you, after we're done, not right now, but if after we're done, you click on that link for Dinosaurs Are Here, well, you're going to see dinosaurs running around the museum. And one of those 5 dinosaurs, you might know more than you realize.
It is moi. C'est moi.
If you see an orange triceratops, just watch for those moves you're already so familiar with from watching those flamenco dancers.
The triceratops d'orange or something.
Let's see. The last thing I've gotten in here is, Born to Die in Freedom's Call. These are. I'm not even going to talk about it. AI created music.
Yeah.
On my channel.
You know, it's
I would like you to click those just to get my view counts up. I could really use that, but they're not music that I wrote. One of them is lyrics that I wrote. It was just outrageous to see how good AI music already is. And it's funny because we both follow the musician Rick Beato. He's a producer and a studio guy and talks about music. And he was talking about AI music, artificially, just completely created music. And he's like, yeah, that sounds really good. And then he played it for his kids. And his kids said, oh, yeah, that's AI music.
Yeah, or why are you listening to that AI music?
And Rick Beato was like, what are you talking about? How could you tell? Probably because given his age and his hearing, there's just something there that the kids can hear a little better. But it's funny because I did these 2 short pieces of music using an AI engine, and Amy heard them and said, ugh, what is that?
That's AI music. I don't know if I did. I mean, you told me it was AI music first, so it wasn't a fair evaluation of it, but I can tell. I mean, it's sort of like, when Cher first came out with her auto-tune song with her voice, whatever that song was called.
Believe.
And then
when the voice is bouncing around. Yeah, and T-Pain took it, whatever Cher had it on 7, he turned it up to 11.
And you're like,
well, T-Pain was the producer on Believe,
auto-tune.
so it makes sense.
I think eventually people are going to say, they're going to get an ear, like they're going to train their ear towards it because you're going to hear enough of it and they'll say, oh, God, not AI music again.
But my point would be, and this will relate to when we're talking about the debate, it doesn't stop there. It's 2024, right?
Yeah.
So we're still living in the 20s. Eventually, we won't be living in the 20s. We'll be living in the 30s and the 40s. And AI, you should, if you haven't heard any AI-generated music, after we're done, listen to those 2 tracks. And what's amazing, they say the amazing thing about the dancing gorilla is not how well he dances, but that he dances at all. The amazing thing about AI music is you've got these tracks with drums, and there's no drummer. It's all computer generated. There's a bass guitar. There's no bass player. There's guitar, like not just synthesizer tones. It sounds like a guitar. Mm-hmm. There's singers singing words no human being has ever sung before in a voice that is not anybody's voice.
Yep.
How is this possible? And yet it's early days. 5 years from now, people won't be saying, oh, it's that AI music. They'll be saying, I don't know whether that's AI or some guy.
Well, I mean, people will be able to give it prompts and give some kind of structure with those prompts.
Just like we do now.
Except, I don't think it's ever going to, it's sort of like the people's love affair with vinyl in the last, 15 years. They love that sound of vinyl because it sounds like it's actually got humanness behind it. And that visceral human experience behind it, it's generated from our senses as human beings, not from AI prompts, not from let's just randomly throw something together. It's really when you compose a song, and I think the best songs out there are the ones that have some kind of beginning, middle, and end, maybe some kind of crescendo, a really, really tasty bridge that really affects you emotionally or makes you want to get up and dance, or gives you frisson, makes your hair stand up. And I don't know if AI will ever be able to get there.
If you can say what you just said,
Yeah,
as eloquently as you just said it,
I still don't think AI could do it.
AI is already doing it.
No.
And you can see it. You can see it in their arrangements where they will start off soft, and then they will have a middle, and then they will let it come to a bridge that goes down a little, and then they will have something climactic, and then they will... All of the things that we say we can do in a piece of music, they're already doing.
I don't think so.
We will see.
We will see.
We will see. If I had the way I would put it is, as time goes on, AI will be as good as relatively lousy musicians. And then later on, AI will be as good as mediocre musicians. And then later on, AI will be as good as your average garage band. And it will continue and continue, and you can argue they'll never get to the point where they're as good as a master songwriter or a master performer. And you may be right about that.
You're never going to have the breath of life in it. I don't think you will be. I mean, just as...
You will have better than the breath of life in it.
No.
You will have a breath that goes a little deeper and keeps you a little more on edge than the greatest performer. Because the computer will know what it is that's putting people at the edge of their seat.
I mean, it's the same kind of thing, when, like, any kind of computer-generated, whatever it is, or computer-assembled. Say, for instance, when we're talking about digital art, or taking photography, putting it together in a collage, making digital art out of, in Photoshop or whatever, and people are up in arms, and, that actually never really got anywhere. We still have artists dealing with paints and brushes.
Sure.
And I think we will always have a market for actual musicians dealing with real instruments humans. But yeah, no, I mean, I get what you mean.
Yeah, it's not either or. It's going to be very, very interesting. Now, you see AI and not just AI, just technology and robotics and automation. Always think outside the AI box, because that's just one element of it, getting better and better and better. And the one advantage that computers have is that with the proper maintenance, they have a pretty long lifespan. And then you get people who are near EOF, end of life, EOL, hardware failure. And that brings us to Thursday night's debate. It's the end of the world as we know it. We've already heard the pundits say this was elder abuse. They should not have let Biden on that stage. Any of his handlers should have saved him from that disgrace, from doing what they did, which implies that Biden has handlers, that he's a marionette, he's on puppet strings. The people who believe that, the people who believe the shadow government is making Biden's decisions for him, the people who believe that all the politicians are marionettes and there are puppet masters up top, the people who believe that stuff should have hung their heads in shame and renounced that view on Thursday night once and for all. Of course they won't. People who think that way will always think that way, but Joseph Biden is obviously his own man. Nobody could think that was a good idea if they were, some mastermind controlling things behind the scene. No, what you saw is what you got. I don't see any other way to look at it. And I take that as an enormously positive sign. Incidentally, and a few of the pundits, again, I really appreciate the information that's been offered, even though it won't be exactly what you get here tonight. A few of the pundits have observed Donald Trump actually behaved himself on Thursday night, at least more than anybody thought he could. He didn't behave the way he did in any of the previous debates. He didn't have the opportunity. They were doing mic cutting. They didn't do the live audience. But he could have steamrolled. He could have done more of the usual bluster and blather.
Yeah, he wasn't as triggered as he usually is when somebody actually challenges him. I think I enjoyed listening to Euron Brook and what he had to say about the debate. There's a short clip on YouTube, but yeah, it was a really good performance by Trump. He didn't look like a crazed, narcissistic, potential murderer.
Not compared to himself, compared to a normal politician. And I bring that up because, yeah, somebody posted, who did, somebody on X, I'll find it on here. I think it was Daniel Nolan on X, posted a video clip. It was a back and forth, side by side, back and forth, of Barack Obama in 2012 debating Mitt Romney. And they were both gentlemen. One of my favorite lines from The Fountainhead is when Dominique Franklin is in court and they're testifying against Howard Rourke, the architect. So, they're kind of pressing Dominique for bona fides, and they say, "Well, your father is a great architect, right?" She says, "Yeah, my father is an architect." And he was asked to be here, and that's what Dominique says. My father was asked to come to be here, and he declined. He didn't agree with the architecture, but he didn't think that we were behaving like gentlemen. Favorite line from The Fountainhead, because that actually matters.
Right.
So people with some sense of dignity.
I mean,
of decorum, of the self-esteem to conduct yourselves like gentlemen. And as much as at the time, and even in hindsight, many people said Obama is the end of America, he's the Antichrist, he's the end of the world as we know it. I think REM said that. Oh no, that was in the 80s. Obama was a gentleman. I know, he's evil, he's so terrible, all the things he did. How dare you call him a gentleman? Watch those video clips. And Romney. And they shook hands, and they were dignified with each other, and they spoke civilly. And when they talked about one another's policies, they were ruthless. But when they spoke to one another, they knew what a presidential candidate should say in order to actually communicate ideas. And it's not about being nice. It's not about being genteel. It's about this is the way that grown men conduct themselves when they are dealing with ideas. And then they switched video to Trump and Biden. And I shouldn't laugh, because I know there are people who think this is the end of America. If this is what we have descended to, if we are once again faced with the choice of Joe Biden and Donald Trump. But to see the comparison between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney and Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Equal from Reality says on the chat on YouTube, I never saw it, but the Daily Mail had a brilliant headline: Man Baby Beats Up on Senile Old Timer.
That's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah. I like where somebody refashioned the old man yells at cloud.
Yes. To
be old man yells at old man. There's only 3 years difference between these two.
Right.
Donald Trump is not young either, although I suspect, brain-wise, he's more than 3 years younger than Joe Biden.
Yeah,
it was sad to see.
It's such a bankruptcy with both parties. I mean, and the fact of the matter that Biden, after, or that night or that morning, didn't just say, I'm going to recuse myself, I'm going to step down as president of the United States right now and have Kamala take over or whatever, is bizarre. That he was so just mentally disorganized in the debate, couldn't really answer, didn't have any energy, sounded like a zombie. He was incompetent to be president of the United States for even 1 day or 1 hour. For him not to just have the dignity and say, you know what, I respect the office of the United States of America, I'm going to now step down. The Democratic Party is going to have to find a replacement for me. Or have his wife, Jill Biden, say that for him or something.
It's great that you mentioned that, because there are people, there are people like me who have said Donald Trump has disrespected the office of the president so much.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve in a million years to be anywhere near a polling booth, much less the White House. Now, I was saying that before January 6th. But afterward, But in a way, you're right. Joe Biden is disrespecting the office of the president so much by sticking around, much less running for re-election, that you could easily say the same thing about him. I absolutely agree with that. In the chat there, I see that Robin Heron says, he was told to just let Biden destroy himself. I've heard that perspective, too, that Donald Trump, his advisors said, look, don't do your usual shtick. Don't make up, old Joe and nicknames for him. Don't do any of the usual Donald Trump stuff. He's gonna hang himself. Just let him. But when has Donald Trump ever listened to anyone? Especially about his behavior, much less his policies. So you're right. And that is what Donald Trump did. But in a way, I've got to give Trump props for that.
I think that Donald Trump, because he is such a second-hander and he has this emotional radar, and I've seen this. We've all seen this. He can turn on the charm, or he can beat somebody down, depending on what is pragmatically needed on an emotional level.
Yeah,
he's very good at this, and I think.
You're
That's
right.
What was happening.
He knows what to give an audience, but the question is, which audience is he going for? And this time, he was going for a better audience, and I think he's finally figured it out. The October 6 types, he's already got them. I could shoot a guy on Fifth Avenue, and they'd still follow me. He's already got them, and I think he's realizing he's got to get better people.
Right.
He's got to be better. In fact, that relates to my Post-it note for the week, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yes, absolutely, he let Biden destroy himself. I can't. Incidentally, Race Jacobson in the chat says Guy Franken, or Guy Franken, was not a good guy, but he also was not a savage.
Right.
I love the character of Guy Franken because he's terrible. He's a horrible guy.
Yeah.
But he's nothing like the real villains. He's not even as bad as Peter Keating. In many ways, and by the end of the story, he becomes a semi-sympathetic character.
Yep.
And I love that about, see, a lot of people like to paint Ayn Rand as having made her villains, one-dimensional. They never change. They don't learn anything. They don't go through anything. And that is so wrong, but...
It is so wrong.
But it's all too easy a characterization to make. So, yes, I like the character. I don't like Guy Franken.
But she brings the
I
nuance.
like his development.
She brings development, nuance, and even redemption. In a lot of cases, with all of any character she introduces, they're never one-dimensional.
Right.
And
it's one of the great things about Ted Lasso. Somebody posted a picture of 12 characters from Ted Lasso, and which ones do you love and which ones do you hate? And there's only 2 out of the 12 that were real villains. Well, partway through the story, some of them were villains, but by the end, there were redemptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the end, the only 2 villains were Edward Foucault, the Ghanan guy who wanted to take over football, and, of course, Mannion. Rupert Mannion.
Yes.
I'm thinking of he was the leader, the mentor in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
he was.
Same actor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, you're absolutely right about Guy Franken, but by the end, you're right. He's not a savage, and by the end, he's not a good guy, but he turns around a bit. Or at least he's more sympathetic because he's nice to his daughter for a change, which is good. Now listen, here's the point I wanted to make tonight. Well, I've already been making the point I want to make tonight. Let not your heart be worried about the results of the Thursday debate. It's as bad as it's ever been as far as the stature of these 2 candidates. And in a way, that should be... It's not a happy thought. It's a terrible thought. It's a depressing thought. But it just might be a safe thought. Which do you think is more menacing? Well, now you know better because the spoilers already happened. But which did you think was more menacing in 2008 or 2012? Barack Obama or Joe Biden? Or even Barack Obama or Donald Trump? Who is the greater threat? Who did more damage? Well, I just want to look at the national debt, and we got to go with Donald Trump. No, Obama was going to round us all up in boxcars. He took all of our ammunition. He took all the guns away.
Yeah, yeah.
He completely socialized the healthcare system. Well, he did actually do tremendous damage there.
Oh, and there was going to be death panels.
Death panels.
Yes.
Death panels. Well, in a way, there are death panels because some healthcare is now rationed out in ways it didn't used to be. Obama was bad. I don't mean to undercut the ways Obama was bad, but it was not the end of the world as we know it. And Joe Biden, compared to Barack Obama, is a piker.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, given everything going on with Joe Biden, unless somehow they manage to swoop in Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer, our governor here in Michigan, or even Kamala Harris, or Kamala Harris. I got to find out how she pronounces her name herself because the pundits keep taking me in different directions, and she just might be the next president of the United States. I still want Tulsi Gabbard. Of course, I wanted her to win back in 2000. I mean, you know what I want is Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley should be the next president of the United States. It's not going to happen. If Donald Trump was going to step aside, it would obviously be Vivek Ramaswamy. That's not going to happen either. Donald Trump has only one interest in regard to the United States of America, and that is to rule it. I don't believe, incidentally, per some other pundits, even objectivist pundits, that after his second term in 2028, he'll try to figure out how to get a third term. I don't believe it. He'd love it, but he's not going to do it. That's not his, not going to happen. But these aren't the worst guys to ever happen to the United States of America. And Biden is what we've always wanted, which is nothing. Well, in the sense of government overreach, in the sense of government doing more than it should. And we've already shown that those marionettes who are out there, I know there are shadow governments and all that stuff happening on, but they're not as powerful as you think they are. And when Biden gets weaker, it actually makes them weaker because the Republican Party does still exist. The opposition party, as impotent as it is under Donald Trump, it does still exist. No, Joe Biden as president will be much less bad than Joe Biden as president. And by that I mean the previous 4 years. Donald Trump. A lot of people think, well, if Trump does get elected again, reelected isn't the right word because he got a 4-year vacation, but if he gets reelected or elected again, well, he won't have to worry about getting reelected because he can't. So he'll do all those crazy, terrible things he wanted to do. You know, build the wall and stop all the immigration and pass 100% tariffs on the Chinese and destroy the American economy. Not going to happen. The same things that stopped him from doing those things in the first term will stop him from doing them in the second. He will do some bad things. I'm especially concerned about the conservatives. Mm-hmm. You know, we're getting the 10 Commandments in public schools. Well, that's ridiculous and it shouldn't be there, but it's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal because it's precedent setting.
Yeah.
So not a good thing. On the other hand, Donald Trump, as an administrator, was a mixed case. You know, throughout the Trump presidency, accusations of TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, would get thrown around for anybody who criticized Donald Trump. It was a derangement syndrome, really, on the part of his fans who couldn't actually see reasonable criticism of the Donald. But part of making sure that I was not ever being reactionary in terms of our 45th president is that I always kept a list of good things that happened under the Trump administration. And I didn't mean to give him credit for all of them, but, you know, it is the case that he appointed Nikki Haley as his UN ambassador, and that did make a difference on the world stage. The UN shouldn't even exist, but if the United States was going to be involved, Nikki Haley was the right person to be there, and not what anybody on the left or even many on the right wanted. He did repeal substantial parts of the PPACA, aka Obamacare. He did reverse Barack Obama's Afghanistan policy, and he didn't do the right withdrawal. The cut and run policy was disastrous, but he was at least right on finally ending a 20-year war that we had no business being there. He did have, despite the way he handled diplomacy, he did have a hardline policy against Russia. He provided military and financial support for Ukraine and Poland under his administration. The appointment of Neil Gorsuch was good. The 2017 cuts in corporate and income tax rates were good. The decimation of ISIS was good. The executive order of growth on departments was good, even though it was limited. The withdrawal from the Paris Climate, I'm not going to go through all the good things that came out of the Trump administration because I loathe and despise the man in every possible way. If you want to know why I loathe and despise him, you know who's really good on this? Everybody who's ever thought dispassionately about Donald Trump, but especially Robert Trzynski. His article on Trump that he released after the recent trial in which Trump was confirmed to be a felon.
Oh, I haven't read this yet.
I've always thought his very existence was felonious. But he has an essay entitled "A Man of Low Character." It's easy to forget just what a lousy person Donald Trump is. It's a handy reminder that the man has the worst conceivable character, and if he was a Democrat, if he was a leftist, who would care about his character? They're used to the Bill Clintons in their party and saying it's okay that you're a lousy person. But the right? The conservatives? Here, I'll read just the opening paragraph of Trzynski's essay that he wrote after that trial. I've been planning to write something about Donald Trump's conviction on all 34 counts in his porn star hush money case in New York. Follow the link, and he gives a link, by the way, as a good explainer of what the counts consist of. But there have been a lot of people delving into the legal and political angles on this, and as with anything involving Trump, it's easy for us to get pulled back into the usual arguments swirling around him. And I wanted to find a way to stand back and look at this from the big picture perspective. I think I can boil the lessons in this case down to 3 basic truths. 1, Trump is a man of exceptionally low character. 2, he engaged in a serious effort to hide this fact from voters. And 3, whenever they were paying attention, well, voters do figure out these first true truths. He starts with, Trump is a man of exceptionally low character, and exceptional here is not just rhetorical flourish. I mean, there are few people in the world as slimy as this guy. And then, this is the part I should have just started with, because this is the point. We've kind of had this fact beaten into us so many times that we stop reacting to it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just one of the tricks Donald Trump has learned. If you are unremittingly awful all the time, people just get used to it and expect it. We just get used to calling this Trump's porn star hush money case and then shorten it down to, well, the hush money case. And we don't step back to realize a man who used to be the president of the United States and who has once again won the nomination of the nation's socially conservative party had sex with a woman famous for appearing in pornographic films, did so while his wife was recovering from giving birth to his son, paid the porn star to maintain her silence, and hid this payment so he could still gain the votes of the religious right. And he goes on.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't use the word, but the word is desensitization. You become desensitized.
Yeah.
The more you hear it, and
It's funny, the right, the conservatives, and rightly so, will complain about the shifting of the Overton window. The Overton window is basically all the things that we can possibly talk about. It's that window of things that are acceptable to talk about. And there are certain things that are just not acceptable to talk about. I can't think of any offhand. Like when somebody tries to bring up a relationship between race and IQ. And we just don't talk about that. It's a horrible idea, and you could disprove all of that crap. But it's not within the Overton window. It's not within reasonable conversation. Donald Trump has shifted the window of acceptable behavior. We just don't judge anything that he does because we're just used to it. That's Donald Trump. As we say in politics, it's baked in. Whatever effect that's going to have, it's already there. And we're just used to it. We just, okay, but that's Trump. That's what he is. That's what he does. That's what it takes. And Jennifer in the chat says, why is Melania still there? It's a great question. I don't know that there's a answer to it. She's either worse than we can imagine,
Or blackmailed.
Or blackmailed. No, I think she's just worse than we imagine because she's quiet and she seems elegant, and that implies that she has a genteel nature and maybe she's just a victim.
I don't know about
But
nah.
but that doesn't really hold up if you think about it. So the answer's got to be she's enough like Trump that she wants to be there.
Yeah.
She enjoys the power. She enjoys all of the things that come from being Mrs. Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think of Betty Pope and James Taggart.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of character. Exactly. I mean,
Take me out for shish kebab.
The answer to Jennifer's question is the same as the answer to why is Hillary Clinton still Mrs. Bill Clinton?
Yeah.
Because the sleeping around just didn't matter that much compared to what comes with the position. And it may even be true love. They may be kindred spirits, which is no credit to either one of them. It gives me more of a shiver than the idea that she's just an out-and-out cynic and pragmatist. Yee.
But, getting back to, in listening to Yarnbrook the other day, and going through the debate and everything, he did actually talk about what needs to be done in terms of changing the culture. And I encourage everybody to just revisit. This is on ari.ayanrand.org. Or just look it up. Man's Rights and the Nature of Government.
Two of the greatest essays Ayn Rand wrote. Certainly on politics.
I mean, and the thing is that people really have really felt that these ideas are not understandable, and they can't be reasoned with, and people can't be reasoning with each other. And forget Biden and Trump for a moment. That perspective of that American people do have, that is the scariest part of all of this. Let me just read. This is something that Leonard Peikoff said in The Ominous Parallels. This quote: "If men uphold reason, they will be led ultimately to conclude that men should deal with one another as free agents, settling their disputes by an appeal to the mind. In other words, by a process of voluntary rational persuasion. If men reject reason, they will be led ultimately to conclude the opposite, that men have no way to deal with one another at all, no way, except physical force wielded by an elite endowed with an alleged superior mystic means of cognition." People don't necessarily think that Trump or Biden have a superior mystic means of cognition. We're not there yet. I don't think we're there yet, but I am afraid that people are ultimately throwing their hands up in the air and saying we can never solve this.
Well,
and but that's why we got to go back to Man's Rights and the Nature of Government by Ayn Rand.
That's true.
Can I just read a paragraph real quick?
Please.
This is just the second paragraph. She's such a goddamn brilliant writer. Anyway. Okay. Rights are a moral concept. The concept that provides a logical transition from the principles guiding an individual's actions to the principles guiding his relationship with others. The concept that preserves and protects individual morality in a social context. The link between the moral code of a man and the legal code of a society, between ethics and politics. Individual rights are the means of subordinating society to moral law. And the one thing
unquote.
Unquote. So the one thing that is really telling to me about this debate is that neither candidate is talking about moral law necessarily, or even the issues. I mean, they kind of blurted out some nonsensical things on both sides about abortion, immigration, inflation, how much each president spent, in their 4-year term. things like that. It's all concrete bound. There are no principles behind it, and there are no there's no willingness to be leaders here, to say this is explainable and I have a solution for this. All we have at this point is this is not explainable and my opponent is worse than I am. That's all we have at this point. And so again, it's really important to speak out when we can. You know, even that 3% of the 97% rule, 97% live your life, be happy, focus on your values and your plans for the future. 3% speak out, write people. Just take this this URL here from ARI.org, send it to a few people and say, politics are understandable. Moral law is understandable.
Right. And the chat again says, Biden was terrible in the debate, but Trump was also terrible, just not as bad. And that's kind of the point here is, Trump is not, it's not that he's that much better. It's just compared to Biden, Jennifer's dog Mina would have been better than Joe Biden. So it's not a great test of the greatness of Trump. But compared to Biden, it would be interesting to put I wish we could put Donald Trump up against Joe Biden's former boss. Put Donald Trump up against Barack Obama and watch Obama wipe the floor with him. That would have been something to see. And again, I voted against Obama. I'm not a fan of Obama. I've protested Obama with protest signs in my hand. I'm not a fan. But if you want to talk about the way a president should at least behave himself, at least communicate with people as if he has some respect for their minds, well, there you go.
And when I'm talking with other people, whether that's at work or whatever, you can kind of, in terms of saying, these ideas are comprehensible. We can figure them out, just as, point out the fact when people get up in the morning, they most of the good people that still exist in America, and there's so many of them, they have a purpose for their day. They know what they're going to do, where they're going to go, who they're going to work with. They have an idea that they can understand and communicate with the people that they work with at work, in their jobs and their tasks, in giving presentations. That there's things here that are able to be communicated, and that you can actually not only communicate them but take action on them. You can actually take action on them and actually put them in a spreadsheet and figure out your strategic plan for an entire organization. And you can bring money in. You can come up with with business plans and figure out how to increase revenue for the year. You can do all of this stuff, and you can do it together with people.
Yes.
With people who are reasonable.
That's true. Being rational and being moral, decent, still works.
And on top of that, and that's why I always advocate pointing out the virtues of other people.
Yes.
And say, what, I that was, whatever it may be, try to come up with how you're seeing that person use reason, how you're seeing that person be honest, how you're seeing that person have integrity. If you find somebody who admits their mistakes at work, call it out. Say, that is so admirable that you have the integrity and you have the honesty to admit when you make a mistake. I really admire that.
Yes. If you are interested in this, look up an episode we did called Compliments! ! Yes. Hard to overstate the value of that.
But I think culturally in America, we all know how to get up and go to work and actually improve profits, right? What we need to do is we need to learn the vocabulary of moral law and understand how we can start finding better ways politically to communicate and to solve these issues. I think that's a good start with that.
I've always hated the expression "nobody's perfect," but Akira Felix says, to be fair, Andrew Yang behaved way more presidential, and he was the only Democrat that said, well, third world companies jail their political opponents. Yes, and nobody is perfect. So I'm not looking for a candidate to never say something that I disagree with. But, yeah, I would, well, it's hard to say because Yang was, he was so not a politician that it was kind of hard to judge him as a politician. And he was a unique thinker. He was an independent thinker. You've got to give him that. I still say Nikki Haley for president. But not getting too far off track here. There's a few things in the chat I want to respond to, but I don't know if I'll be able to get to everything. Because I do want to say there is an explanation for what happened Thursday. And those of you out there who watched the State of the Union address, you already know what it is. Because the State of the Union address this year was PDG, pretty damn good. And Joe Biden delivered it. Of course, he delivered it from teleprompters, and he delivered it after having rehearsed it clearly over and over and over again. And he did it in front of a Congress that was largely sympathetic and knew to applaud at all the right times. But it was pretty damn good. And I think that he's had enough of those experiences where he can still do that he thought, well, you know, with enough coaching and memorizing the right answers to things, I can do this too. And it's sad because he can't, but I can see why at least some people thought that he could. He's not dead yet. He's not even quite brain dead yet, although he's way too damn close to be running for president. But as I say, if there's somebody else is pulling the strings, then I'm not worried about it because they're not any brighter than he is. No, Joe Biden is exactly what he appears to be. Everything is just as it appears. That's a Chris Squire line from one of his songs. Everything is as it appears to be so. And that is exactly what is going on. It's true that the leftist media is trying to provide cover, but even they, or many of them, are having to admit, yeah, this is irrecoverable. And Biden needs to finish his term, but for the presidential election, hand over the reins to Gretchen Whitmer, hand over the reins to Gavin Newsom, hand over the reins to Kamala Harris, Tulsi Gabbard, somebody, anybody, even the people who are on his side, other than the leadership. It's strange that Barack Obama and Hillary and Bill Clinton and there are people high up saying, no, Joe is still up for it. The debate wasn't perfect, but I know Joe, and he's. Even the left is starting to acknowledge. The New York Times, which I know most of you think is leftist, and are being reasonable on this, or at least letting reasonable voices have their say.
But speaking of reasonable voices,
yes,
the one thing that the one thing I'm actually very optimistic about, and I predicted this would happen. It was about 2 years ago when they overturned Roe versus Wade. We got on, I think, with James Valiant on ARC UK at the time.
Yes, we did.
And I discussed.
Great discussion.
Yeah, I had all of my facts straight and all of the stats, all the numbers, and my prediction was that it's going to go to the states, and the states are going to be good with it. They're going to codify into their law that women have a right to abortion. And
most of the states have been good with it, but some of them have been terrible with it, so it's been a mix.
Yeah, it's been a mix. It's not quite there yet, but it's a lot better in the last 2 years. I mean, it hasn't been that long. And
incidentally, in the debate, Trump was asked about abortion, and he said flat out, he wants the exceptions that are in place to remain in place, rape and incest and special circumstances. He wants the states to decide. In other words, he's not looking to pass federal law.
Yeah, he said that he's not looking to pass a federal law.
And I believe him. I believe him on that.
I was a little shocked by that. But...
all the evidence, well, no, because he's not trying that hard to court the evangelicals. He thinks he can get them with where he stands right now.
Yeah.
In fact, Jim Ashley points out the one weak area for Donald Trump was they asked him about January 6th. And he did not have good answers for that. He did not have any answers for that.
No.
Jim says, but in that clip, Trump evaded the question about what he would tell people who think he approved of and was involved in the January 6th intrusion in the Capitol. He evaded the issue twice when asked, talking about things that seemed like an answer to the question, but were not. It was one of the lessons of modern politics that both of these men, I'll use that term loosely, well, yeah, they're men, not gentlemen, but men, that they have learned is when somebody asks you a question, if it's not a question you like your answer to, just answer a different question. Answer the question you want to be asked. And fortunately, the moderators were good on that because, Trump would spend 50 seconds of his minute and a half answering the wrong question. And the moderator would actually say, President Trump, you have 70 seconds left. The question was, and that was pretty good. They handled that really well.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, honestly, I remember the details of January 6th very, very clearly. And it's almost sort of like 9/11. I remember those moments. And not as clear, thankfully, anymore. But yeah, January 6th, there was a point at which Donald Trump was in the back of the limo or the car, wherever he was, and his driver, I don't know who the driver was. I don't know if his name was ever revealed, but he was having a hissy fit and a conniption. Trump was having a conniption.
Oh, because his security detail and his driver wouldn't take him there.
They would not take him to the Capitol building.
Yeah.
He wanted to go to the Capitol building. He wanted to be there.
Yeah, the Secret Service would not do it.
And say, hang Mike Pence himself. I mean,
well, he's not going to say that now, but yes.
No, but if
point.
that driver drove him there that day, if they allowed him to do that,
can you imagine?
He would not. I don't think he would have had any chance in hell.
No, he would have been out before January 20th.
Yeah, he would.
No.
I wish they had given him the opportunity to fully hang himself, and they didn't. I understand why they didn't, but still, I mean. I was sort of my fantasy, but yeah.
So let me bottom line this, which we've kind of already done. Barack Obama was a bad president. I don't mean he was bad at being president. I mean because of his policies, because of his beliefs. He did things that did substantial harm to the country. And a lot of people thought in 2012, if he gets reelected, it's the end of America. Well, his term 2012 through 2016 was not good, but it was not the end of America. Far, far, far from it. And none of what people thought was going to, well, I should say none of what the alarmists thought was going to come to pass came to pass. Donald Trump, of all people, that guy who used to do that TV show, The Apprentice.
That game show host, you mean?
Yeah, the guy who was running like one
host?
of the wrestling groups and... talked about grabbing women by their nether. Anyway, that guy
with the stakes.
That guy became president in 2016, and he was president from 2016 through 2020.
No.
And he didn't destroy the country.
What?
Now, if you look at the national debt, he was responsible for a bigger chunk of that than anybody in history.
$8 trillion.
So it's not that he didn't try to destroy the country, but he didn't destroy the country. Now, wait, it gets better. You know that guy who was in the debate on Thursday night? The old guy who looked like he was just ready to fall down and die because there was nothing animating him anymore? That guy, Joseph Biden, was president of the United States starting in 2020, and he still is. And he hasn't managed to destroy the country yet.
Whoa.
Now listen, I'm not a utopian. I do believe... I understand all of the harm that all of these men and men before them have done. I understand that there is a tipping point, but we're not there. And we're nowhere near there. If Joe Biden gets reelected, we will survive. I don't know if he'll make it another 4 years, but we will survive. And I can tell you why I believe this. I've got the list of reasons why if Donald Trump gets reelected, we will actually survive that too. We're going to get through. Now, this is not complacency, but that's exactly what I want to say tonight. The alternative is not complacency versus despair. How about curiosity? I wonder, what is it? It's going to be bad. I know it's going to be bad, but what is it going to look like? What will the harms be? And what will be the surprises? Because there will be surprises. I don't know, maybe enthusiasm is too much, but what about wonder? I wonder what good things are going to come out of this despite those, because there will be good things. Amazing things have happened in the last 16, 18, 20 years. No, not because of politics, not because of government, but despite them. And concern. I am full of concern and caring for the damage these people will do, the big black eye that's going to be to our political system, and what it's going to take to recover from it. And what things, because some of them will come out worse on the other end for both the liberals and the conservatives and the libertarians, if they matter at all, and the independents, because RFK Jr. is still out there. No, this is not complacency, but it's also not despair. These men, if they could have destroyed this country and this last freest, greatest nation on earth, and therefore the world, if they could have destroyed us, they would have done it already. They've done enormous harm. They may still do even more harm. They ain't taking this country down. It's not going to happen. This is not optimism. At least not utopianism. This is realism. They haven't destroyed us yet, and there is no reason to believe that they're going to destroy us in the future. Bad things are going to happen. And I don't just mean January 6th things bad are going to happen. October 7th things are going to happen. Some of those will be our fault for not doing the right things. But if we survived 8 years of Barack Obama, if we survived 4 years of Donald Trump, if we've just survived almost 4 years of Joe Biden, we will survive the next 4 years. And I don't think it's going to be as bad. 2028, 2032. I think these may well be the worst presidential candidates. Not the most evil, just the worst people that we have ever had before. We may get more evil candidates in the future. The culture is a mess. Who knows what 2028 is going to look like? But we will get there. We will survive there. And we, starting in 2016, starting today, we will be able to do what we can do about it, insure ourselves against it, put up barriers and protections, and handle our finances and taxes and our careers and everything else, do what we can, and then 97% of the time ignore it. Which we usually do on Sunday afternoons.
That's right.
Couldn't do it this week. But this was too big. It had to be discussed.
Yeah, and I got to say, you're talking about the culture being messy. Imagine how much messier it would have been without Ayn Rand's ideas.
I always say, Ayn Rand has already saved the world several times over.
Yes.
I can't even imagine if her influence had not been part of the mix.
And in terms of your own thinking, whether that's your own thinking applying to your own goals and values and lives.
Which matters about 1,000 times more than anything going on in politics.
Yeah.
What you're doing with these ideas for your own sake in your own life.
Or with politics.
Even there.
Writing your Congress critters or the media or whoever, or setting up a Facebook page or whatever you want to do. And you've got to always remember how powerful reason is. When Ayn Rand's talking about reason and individual rights, those concepts are extremely powerful, and they have great power of persuasion. You cannot forget this. And if you have forgotten it, reread Man's Rights and the Nature of Government online.
Yeah. Go out in the world, those of you who tend to spend a little too much time watching the news or reading on the internet, and look at your freedoms, look at your opportunities, look at what is out there. I love Ayn Rand's novelette, Anthem, but this is not the world of Anthem.
Right.
This is not the world of Brave New World. This is not the world of 1984. Yes, we can look at things that shouldn't be happening right now that reflect what's predicted in those books. And that's important. But this is not that world. This is not anything like that world. It's great that we can see doublespeak and guard against it. But the whole point of 1984, of Atlas Shrugged, of Anthem, is to be able to recognize that and then say, no, I'm not going to let that into my own life. And to the extent that I can fight it in politics, I'm going to do that too.
Yeah.
But life is way too precious. You've only got one of them. There isn't a day that you can waste and then get back because you think, can I have a do-over? No, life is too short. Do not let them win. Do not let them live rent-free in your head. Don't even let them rent a little space there. Do what you've got to do. Understand what's going on politically, but especially understand what you're doing philosophically. Live your own best life. It was a hell of a debate, and I do mean hell. But I'm already curious to see what the second debate looks like. Assuming Joe Biden sticks around, which is iffy, I'm already curious. It's not just going to be another instance of the same thing. I can't say it's going to be fun. It's as fun as watching a car crash or a train wreck. But it's going to be nothing if not interesting. And, life's not always going to be good. But we can certainly hope that life is always interesting. My Post-it note for the week. Yes, I always have a Post-it note for the week, but my Post-it note for the week is an old musician's joke. My Post-it note for the week just says, get better soon. I got a card from the band that I'm in. They sent me a card that said, get better soon. I said, I'm not sick. And they said, well, yeah, but we really think you could get better. Things are going to get better. I don't know if it's going to be soon. Actually, I do. Some things are going to get better soon. Some things are going to get worse. Life is like that. Don't let the things that are getting worse overwhelm you against all the good things, all the things that are getting better. Folks, thanks for joining us. Ran especially long on this important post-debate discussion. There will be more online, so follow us on the socials, on the Facebooks, on YouTube, all of those places. Go to robertnasir.com for links to all of that, plus our Patreon. Yes, you can become a patron of 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. You should become a patron of 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. You could send money to Donald Trump. You could send money to Joe Biden. You don't want to do either of those things. You want to send money to 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. Go to robertnasir.com. Click that link to Patreon. Or if you just want to do a one-time contribution, buy me a cup of coffee, buy Amy a cup of tea.
Yep.
You can click the PayPal link there for one-time contributions. You know you love it. Folks, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being in the chat. I missed a few of the messages. I'll read them all later when they repopulate on YouTube. One of my favorite parts of the show is having you here listen live, but you can also catch us by all of the podcast services, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff.
Yep.
And with that said, all that is left is for us to wish you an outstanding remainder of your Sunday night, beginning to what is going to be an outstanding week. And I mention that because it will be outstanding, but it might not be as outstanding. We are traveling next Sunday, so there may not be an episode unless we do one from the road. We've done some fun episodes from the road. Maybe that will happen, but otherwise, taking a week off, and we will see you the following week. So make it an outstanding 2 weeks, 14 days of your one irreplaceable life, and we wish you every happiness that you so richly deserve, all of the joys, all the prosperity, all of the goodies that your money can buy. And the one thing that money can't buy, or at least